I am Eon, and this is Wednesday, June 25th, 2025 as I record this. Let's take a deep dive into the 3D printing Patreon, My Mini Factory, etc. releases from the 3D creators for the month of June 2025. We'll do this in alphabetical order, of course, and so first up is Second Dynasty. Second Dynasty has the Grid Forge tier. Here we see a communications relay and a Grid Forge floor. For their vehicles tier, we have the Taurus, a Highlander ATV. And for their friends... Oh, and here's a better look at that, sorry. And for their Friends of Benjamin tier, we get everything from before, as well as a few extra alternative sculpts as well. 3D Art Guy has a sci-fi release this month with all of these folks. Let's take a deeper look. Obi-Wan Kenobi. And the Supreme Commander of Separatist Army, not General Grievous. And here he is with cloak, without cloak. Several options 3D Art Guy always does. Here we see Shockwave. Obviously from Transformers. He was the other gun, the Beyond Megatron, as I recall. But this version of Shockwave apparently is a tank, which Megatron also kind of sort of did. From Bubblechrome Crisis, Saber Knights. There are several of these. I'm not exactly sure how many of them there are, to be honest. And then we have a NCR Ranger. This is from Fallout New Vegas. I forget what that stands for. New California Republic. There we go. And for a 1-year plus reward, you have the Highway Star bike. So pretty cool option here, of course. This also comes without a helmet version as well. And if you want just the bike, you can have it without the rider too. Apparently for 3D Art Guy, there's a special release for tribe members. There's the Matriarch's Buffet. Across the Realms this month is doing Grimdark Citizens Volume 2. Here's some burly citizens and some boy urchins. Some factory workers along with some girl urchins. So lots of people to populate your cyberpunk city or grimdark hive, etc. Aether Studios has mostly a fantasy release this month, but they did release some gremlins, and I feel like you can't have mechanics without having gremlins, right? Just don't feed them after midnight. Anvil Digital Forge this month is continuing with the Trenchers Wave 3. Brody's Revenge. Here are some of the options you can put together with these guys. Again, notice the coloring is not just to be different, but to show the multi-shell component of this. They actually have that at the bottom of their graphic. So each one of those things can be taken off and removed, and the rest of the piece is complete even without it. So if you don't want your guys to have suspenders, they don't have to have suspenders. If you don't want those canteens, you can take those away. So lots of options here that you can remove and change about as needed. Here's just an example of how these guys get put together. For a loyalty bonus, there's the Post-Apocalypse Mercenary SVD Scouts. Arcane Whiskers has a few tiers. There's the Cadet tier, which will be the Transport Heist Pack or Nemesis Android Crate. For the Squad Leader tier, you'll have Sir Norbit, the Honorable Bright Shield, and a Doom Speaker. You'll also have Commander Edeline, Legendary Infiltrator, and a Nemesis Android with Titan Slayer Greatsword. There's also the Elite Enemy, EM1LL1-0, I guess it's supposed to be a Milio, and Contingency Swarm, the Ancient Automata. For the Mission Commander tier, you get everything before now, along with the Transport Heist pack and the Cathedral Ruins pack. In addition, the Cyberpunk pack here, that you can put together some buildings. Archvillain Games for the month of June is doing Primal Warlords Warbreed. These seem to be like giant monkey-like critters. Here we have Ajahn of the Sky, Flamin' Waksu, Brave One. And here we have the Ajahn of the Sky. Brave Nakmoy and Furious Kaong. Here's some brave ones. So 10 brave ones, if I'm counting correctly. Here we have the Mui Mats. There are about 5 of these. Along with the Primal Koloi. Notice it has a jetpack. Flying monkeys. That's what we need, because that always ends well for us, right? Wait a second, you know, something to that effect. Here we have a Primal Cossack. Again, very unique names, so I'm probably butchering those. 4 of those, 5 of those actually. Here's a Scorcher 1-1. I love that gun. That is these are pretty cool guns with really big clips here. There's about at least 5 versions of these guys. And then some Flaming Waksu 1 and 2. I was a bit confused at first. I was like, wait a second, does that guy even have a bottom to him? But yes, he does. He's just using his feet in addition to his hands. Atlan Forge has done a little bit of a review for release for us. Egyptian Sentinels. Here come all the different parts that you can put together. Let's look at some of the options. Here we have the Thunderblaze gunship. Pretty cool. I'm always a bit of a sucker for these. And apparently this is cut up for smaller beds. Battlecat Miniatures has both historical and well, all historical, but you know, guns, so I put sci-fi. So for the sake of completion here, there is the Peninsular War Spanish cuirassiers and some more of those. We also have some Peninsular War Spanish Lancers, Samnite Cavalry, Samnite Command Group, Samnite Linean Legion, and then for the more modern releases, we have the World War II French Foreign Legion 25mm AT gun, and just a few different sculpts and versions of the crew here. Some are covering their ears, some are getting down, some are loading, some are firing. A lot of options there. World War II French Samoa S-35. Bite the Bullet Studios is actually doing sci-fi this month with the Ashen Armies Bullet Crusade. Here's a release of everything you'll be getting for the month. Also note that it is Bite the Bullet's 5-year anniversary. So in addition to the release this month, there's also 2 releases of choice, but I don't think it's an individual choice. I think it was a community poll. But anyway, let's take a look at what we get. For Ashen Armies, you get Lieutenant, along with the Lieutenant Yeoman, some Shock Troopers, and Combat Dogs. They come in a few different breeds. I'm sure they're all good boys, though. Here we have a heavy infantry and combat engineer. I think he might be looking at you. More heavy infantry, different weapon, and a trench cleric. Because, you know, you have to keep the boys' morale up. And we have a couple of sniper priests, either with a rifle or with pistols. Because who says a sniper has to have a rifle? And then we have Remedios, the combat medic. It's like she was named to be a medic, isn't it? Claudio Casini Art for the month of June is releasing all of these. There is one over there on the right that I want to focus on, which is the SciFi release, which is SciFi Writers Mail with Colors and Wall. And I believe I said in the preview video, I could easily see this being something for someone that wants to do some graffiti art. Make it your own. No two will ever be the same. Cyberforge this month is doing Legion of Decay with Bioratus Bloomifier. It's quite the name. A Blightburst engine. Here we see from the front and from the back. Fetid Legionnaires. And then for the Titan City stories, we have Dawn of Plague. This is a hollowed knight. Plague Guard. That is, if that's the plague, I don't want it. Here we have some masked maggots and hollow hounds. Reminds me of that scene at the end of The Fly that was the stuff of my childhood nightmares. There's a couple of civilians eating either hot dogs or I guess that's ramen. And some bases over on the right that seem to be covered with some sort of infection. Dakka Dakka has put out their release of models. There's a release list. You can pause right there. We're going to move on. We have Liquidation Team of Ordine Vendetta, excuse me. I can't read tonight. And Iskra Nova the Firestorm. Here we have the KINK Castle Executants and Part 1 and Part 2. I did try looking up what KINK stood for, and I could not. Knights in who say knee, I'm not sure. Big Rat Miners and Rat Mind Miner. That's a tongue twister, Mind Miner. The Phaeton Lead Squad and the Phaeton Heavy Artillery Team. Sergeant Kane, the Infected Claw. Poor fella. He'd be a good plague stand-in for Mantic's games. And here we have the Ordine Vendette Cachites. Some concept art. Duncan Shadow has put out support-free mecha, meaning that you can print this on an FDM printer and not have to put supports in, I do believe. Or maybe upside down in a resin. That's probably better, actually. Giant Crawfish, 3x Steam's Police. A couple of Sisters of Battle Vox casters, and some Mechanicum kind of looking chaps. Also, these are 15mm figures, so a little bit, about half the size of what you're used to. There's a chap and some SciFi troopers. And then these SciFi goblins as well. As if space wasn't scary enough without goblins. Dungeons and Dreadnoughts has put out this image. I don't have any other images to show or to dissect for you, so we'll just pause here for a second. A couple of really nice looking tanks. I really like the ornamentation on the one on the left. But you get mechs, and you also get some basically evolving sort of monsters for alien planets. Edge Miniatures has given us their release this month. Here we go. We have some Tech Pirates, Void Guards on the left. On the right, we have a Skyborn Empire Strike Force. Looks like they brought some probes or assistants with them. These are Strike Force drones. They come in a few different versions: gun, artillery, targeting. For their 8mm line, you have some Armored Lords from the Cursed Elves and some Armored Elites. Reminds me a lot of when 40K released the Dark Eldar. I know I probably shouldn't say that on this video, but that was one of the first editions of 40K that I really messed with, and I remember buying Dark Eldar and trying to put them together, and it reminds me of the Archon from that, which is a way of me saying these look really nice. These remind me of other things, and I think they look really great. Forbidden Prince has put out some Badlands. Apparently 157 STLs that you can put together in various ways. I could see this being adapted for fantasy, maybe, but it does look more like Iron than just regular fantasy. So Ghamak has given us a little bit of a look at the sci-fi releases. Here we have some Temple Ranged Exterminators. And there is a release of everything that you should be getting from the month of June in Ghamak's sci-fi contribution, with some pretty long-barreled tanks. Here we see the Corrupted Artillery and Multi-Artillery. Couple of variations there. Kill Me for Prizes Designs has Hecatus Naga Assault Cyborgs. So not only are they snake-like, they are apparently cyborgs. And again, these are like epic scale, so, you know, like 8mm, something like that. Metal Marauders have Shockheads. And they actually have a couple of different releases here. I'm not sure exactly which ones are which, because they also have Maniacs and Fanatics. So I'm thinking those guys on the right might be some of the Maniacs, and maybe these are the Fanatics or something like that, but I'm not entirely sure. We also have the Void Swarm, which are warrior constructs. Kyoushuneko Miniatures has the Finnish Army, first batch. And this is from their Weird War, apparently. And it is a bit different. I think that's what they called it. Yeah, Finnish Weird War. Because those bikes are really cool with the single unitread. But I'm not aware of anything like that existing in the real world. Granted, I've never been to Finland, so what do I know? But Loot Studios has put out their release this month. I forget the title. I did not write it down. I forgot to put it in. It was something like Starships or something like that. So very interesting release here. Here we see our heroes, Chewit, the Bryn pilot, Security Chief Krark, Dr. Aman Gorov, a technologist Thrix, Captain Castillo, and First Officer Takos. There's definitely a lot of inspiration here without necessarily being from any one particular franchise. Here we see for some enemies, Assimilator Matriarch, an Assimilator Cyborg, a Deep Void Agent, an Azak Retaliator. That's an interesting type of sword in his hands. Petaloid Scoundrel, Ambassador Nebulon, a Dracolian Raider, a Jackbot, and Exioid Murderbot. And yes, I know it looks kind of like a Batleth. Here we have a DV Warship Metalhorn, War Patrol, UGC Nebula Patrol, UGC Star Scout, Assimilator Cube, DV Hawk class ship, and UGC the Spectrum. So very interesting to see these ships here, because I guess you could kind of make your own little ship game instead of even bothering printing off the figures, the figures in that case. There's also Station Beta C7, Herleia War Station, a Frontier asteroid, and a Frontier satellite. Overall, I really like this release. In typical Loot Studios fashions, they're giving you 4 busts. Here we have the Assimilator Matriarch. Of course, that could be her entire form, depending on how she is. A Dracolian Raider, a Captain Castillo, and First Officer Takos. Now, in his hand, you'll notice he has some sort of item which looks a lot like the Zapper, which of course is their prop for this month. LOOTgames is a tribe on My Mini Factory, and maybe a Patreon too. I'm not sure. Not everybody has a Patreon. And they are doing some terrain this month, and this is what you'll get for June. I thought LOOTgames was tied to Loot Studios, but I may be wrong there. Anyway, we'll move on. The Makers Cult has put out their first release for the month of June. I am not 100% sure on which ones are called what, but I'm going to guess. This is the Primus Scions Snipers by Garen. I'm fairly sure. They look like snipers. Long rifles, right? Obsidian Guards Immortals Arva Squad. Obsidian Guard Janissaries Jetbike Squad. They're on jet bikes, so that would be a jet bike squad, right? That logic makes sense to me. Gear Guts Dark Crusaders Heavy Gunners, I think. Assault Troopers. They have some melee weapons or pistols. And then the Gunners. They just have a bolt gun. That makes sense. Mantic Vault this month has done, this is the entire release. Let's focus on just the SciFi portion. We see the Terrain Crate Flora. This is from Terrain Crate. For Firefight, we have the Forge Father Valkyr Bikes. The Hund Wren Bounty Hunter from Dead Zone. I think he comes with a masked version or a non-masked version, if I recall correctly. It's been a while. Lieutenant Major Lauren Chard from Dead Zone. And Veerman, I misspelled Veer, Creeper's Upgrade Kit for Dead Zone. Marchen Atelier has given us a new release in the new world that he is creating. Pretty cool stuff. Doma the Trench Ghost. Every month he is focusing on a different faction. Here we have the Baloffer. I don't speak Deutsch, sorry. No sprechen. Volkarest Armor Miniature. Panzer Dragoons. Get a closer look at those guys. So a handful of miniatures, but a lot of character in those miniatures. Mezgike has given us a look at the Orc Big Boss and a pirate version of him as well. There's also another version that comes with a Zap Hammer and Zappy Guns, apparently, where he has like a helmeted face, if you would. And a Mecha Git as well. So for the month of June, apparently there will be the Big Boss, and there will also be some Dredge Demon Sea Spawns that I have not seen posted yet. Maybe they've posted, but not in the time that I was putting this together, which was all month. Anyway, Modern Miniatures has Russian Arctic Op4 Team STL set and a technical pickup truck, Helix. Very nice, and they've done a lot of things with this pick-em-up truck. So you have here the SPG-9 Kupai Spear Recoilless Gun STL set. So if you want a gunner on the back of your truck, or a makeshift turret for technicals. This all kind of reminds me of Mask, if any of you are my age and remember watching that back in the 80s. Here's a makeshift turret for technicals as well. It just reminds me of like the guns coming out, and I mean, yes, it's obviously Spec Ops and stuff like that, but it just reminds me of Mask. Anyway, back to our regular programming. Mr. Modulork is doing June 6 releases this month. Here's the Hunter Shaman. The free tier gets a Fix-A-Gob. For the second release, there's the Melee Booster Suits. The third release was the Raka Shaman. Sonic energy is a form of energy, y'all. Come on, feel the noise. June 4th, fourth release is Uman's Shaman. And in typical Mr. Modulork fashion, there was a re-release of the Gunna booster suits. So more booster suits, this time's with big, big guns. They probably need the suit to carry those things around, I would imagine. My back hurts just watching. One Page Rules is continuing with the Orc Marauders this month. Still some work in progress to be had. So let's focus on that. Also, if you look at the welcome pack, because that does get changed out every now and then, which is really cool of OPR, in my opinion. A lot of places keep their welcome pack the same every month, but OPR does rotate theirs out. I don't know the frequency off the top of my head. For the legendary model, we have the Alien Hive's Devourer Titan. Humongous figure. Also, a second legendary model, the Saurian Starhost Dread Tyrannosaur. This reminds me of Dino Riders, going back to 80s cartoons again. For Star Quest, we have the High Elf Instigator, not Investigator, Instigator. And for the War Fleets, we have the Progenitors Fleet. There's also going to be an Orc Marauders release, Rurthdag, for the Star Quest as well. Pretty sure that's who that is. Now, I'll be honest, there's a lot of Orc Marauders here. I'm not sure what is what, so I'm not even going to try and tell you which ones are which. I'm sure I could go watch their videos and really get a detailed look at it, but I didn't have time to do that and get this out. I do know they have some specialists, and I would say these are probably specialists, because they seem to have, you know, certain types of guns, like really heavy machine guns, really heavy flamethrowers. This seems to be like some sort of pole arm pulse weapon. I don't know what their loadout is. These are obviously some sort of missile launchers, but I think these are all specialists. There are 60 of them, apparently. These, I think we can say, are the trikes. 3 wheels, trike, yep. And these are not 3 wheels, so they're not trikes, but some sort of buggy cart. Those are probably assault buggies. And then, of course, we have the themed bases and the game aids and so forth. Oshouna Miniatures has put out this release here. Papsikels has put out Playboy Space Crew Scientist and Xenobaby 2. Cyborg Colonial Marshal. Dead Xeno Gorilla. Xeno Gorilla Carnage. I don't suppose they had enough room to put 100 men down there, did they? OWLF Operative Fireteam Units, Colonial Marines, Berserker Combat Suit Units. Fireteam member from OWLF Operatives. The Sapient Humanoid Mystic Dark Templar. These are the miniatures I stay with you for. And also these guys here, Cobra Army Impersonator Fred 4-1 and version 2. The Saw Viper Heavy Machine Gunners. These are really cool minis. The Prawn Outlander Rebel Fighter. And then the Prawn Mechanical Exosuits. As some more Prawn Outlander Rebel Fighters. I put them where I can fit them sometimes. Here we have the Actuarial Program RAM. and Kevin. Cybermecha Street Punk Goof 2 and Street Punk RX 7823. I think 3 is the third version of those, but I might be wrong. Papsikels also does a few releases throughout the month, so the Malignant Fly Grail Thralls, Xeno Ultramorph, and Lardzabal Hell Knights. Piper Makes has put out these images. We've looked at a little bit of this, and I thought I had included this, but apparently I had not. So there's kind of all the pieces that you get to put these things together. And again, I really like the renders of the part of the pieces coming through or going through portals. I just think that's a really cool feature. Print Minis has put out some computer consoles this month. Notice it is compatible with previous releases like Zone Selvik, and some more computer consoles of various shapes and sizes. For a gang expansion, we have the Silent Spectres. There's a close-up of one of these guys. With arches and windows of the Riser District, you get some extra terrain. There's a Relic Vendor and a Sump Fisherman. There's about, I think, 3 of these, if I'm understanding correctly. There is some fish that you can print off just for your fisherman. But there's Fisherman 1, and then a couple of variations with the fish off the fisherman. The Barada Mech clan of Cladhake. Forge Reuters Flesh Forge gang has some modular heads. The Outlaw Gang vehicle kit comes with some riders. For the Ashcoil Foundry Zone Selvik, we have some modular chimney builds. And you can put these together in lots of different ways and fashions with models that you probably already have from previous releases, Zone Selvik. So they're showing you here like how you can put all this together in all these different ways. Here's a giant grinder pit, chimney and pipes. For the Outcast gang, we have some coin collectors. And it looks like they've pretty much finished their June release, maybe not. And there's everything that you get kind of at a glance. Printerra Studios is continuing in June. Here we have the Lion Elder Warrior and Warring Walking Knights. Snow ATV Wolf Shooter Car, and some Nordic weapon bases. It's kind of weird that we're going from all this sci-fi and then, oh look, some Viking shields. I mean, they're cool, don't get me wrong, but Wolf King in the North? I guess he could be a fantasy release. I just put them all in sci-fi. And an Elder Mage. Jumping Wolves and Wolf Knights were definitely sci-fi releases. Yes, that's an axe in his hand, but it's a jetpack on his back. Project Mobius for June has put out the Kagaya bar for Shin Idu. There it is with the roof and without the roof. Residential Building number 2, which is modular and allows you to play at different levels as you would like. There's also this little shuttlecraft, M-type. And something I imagine we will see more people doing is a little diorama of sorts that just you print it off, you paint it, and then you stick your miniatures on it so that they're not just sitting in nothingness, they're sitting within their world. Proxybrewer is new to my videos, but I feel like these fit pretty well. Here we have the Sand Butcher Almordok and Assault Team Weapon Mark 1 upgrade kit. We have some tank commanders. So obviously meant to be slotted in. These are females or males, depending on what you would like. RedMakers and Adeptus Miniatures has put out their 2 parts this month. First, we have the Sunclaw Regiment Squad Imperial Guard. We'll look more at these in a minute when they've released the entire regiment. Kill Squad Gorehorns. Kill Squad Swornids. Reminds me a lot of the Hydralisk from the Zerg. Kind of cool to see the action poses here, where look, he's impaled a warrior. And just for size comparison, what a 40mm miniature looks like versus a 25mm. For June Part 2, we're seeing the completion of the Sunclaw Regiment. 44 units here. You get some standard troopers, you get some snipers, you get some heavy weapons, you get a command group, as well as a leader. And you also get some heavy weapons squads as well. Again, the weapons themselves are not included, just the figures. For big brain energy, you have the Echo Seer, the Hiveborn, and Solar Guard Tactical Command Squad. Comes in a few different poses, but lots of options regardless. Rescale Miniatures I usually put in fantasy, and I still stand that they should be in fantasy. But as I looked at these miniatures more and more, I was like, that is a lot of... that's sci-fi. Those are gears, those are... that's a lot of metal to be done in just a fantasy setting. So let's put these models in. So obviously, critters like this could easily be an alien species you find on another planet, but when you look at that troll and you see the piping, you see the some sort of mechanics in over its eyes and in its shoulder. There's something. It's got piping moving around everywhere. This and that's a screw. That's a star screw actually holding that blade in place. You know, we're dealing with more sci-fi stuff. And look at that. That not only is that a cannon, it has automated legs moving around. So we'll have this in the fantasy video too, but I felt like it was necessary to point out the Ratkin arsenal is pretty advanced, like probably science fiction advanced. Yeah, those look more like laser pistols than they do just regular, gunpowder pistols. Risenvoth has put out Realm of Gears to be released in June, and unfortunately this is the only picture I really have. 5 new heavy destroyer cyborg heads, new shoulder pads, cyborgs revamp set. RPG Figures has put out the Gen 2 Lava Trooper. Stay cool, my man. Sir Nicholas Miniatures, we see the Monolithic Gate, which is sci-fi, it could be fantasy. And then the Demagogue kit. Demagogue. Skullforge Studios has put out Anomalous Entity, the Drudge, and Control Team Void Mantle. All of this is for Protocol. We also have the Insurgent Mechanic and Tactical Officers for the Authority. I'm actually finishing the 2nd season of Andor right now, and maybe that's why I've been a little distracted. Not really, but yeah, very cool to see those miniatures as I finish this out. Xenon Guard Infantry. I'm not sure what these guys are inspired from, but yeah, just outside my realm of influence. Smuggler Boutique has given us this preview for the month of June. Skullforge Studios, we have the medium mech. These do come with several different options, so I think I could actually probably show a few more pictures, but we're running short on time as it is. The Terran Special Forces Cruiser A, RLF Extra Arms, and here's an example of it. These do come with several different options as well. Station Forge has started what they call the recycle tier. So if you want to do the recycle tier, you can get $60, $70 worth of material for however much they charge for it, which is a lot of savings. But these are Corrupted Beast, Corrupted Beast Leader, Corrupted Guard Sporius, and Corrupted Guard Walkers. All the things that you see here in this image. For the month of June, though, they are putting out Grimguard Officer Horseman. He has a couple of options as well, as typical. We have the Tyrian Melee Infantry. We'll look at a couple of the models here. This month is also apparently Station Forge's 4th anniversary, and they say it's free for everyone that wants it, the Forgeling. This little guy here in a couple of different poses. From June of Station Forge, we have Scavenger Sister Priests. The Zenerid Crawlers. And some of these seem like they can barely get off the ground. I think the rolling is pretty cool. I guess they really are crawlers. Corrupted Guard Tormentius. Couple of head options. Traders Galaxy Miniature and Games. Coils ROTD range. They've also put out the Bot War, the Jade Spectre. Twin Goddess Minis. We're not going to look at everything here, but this one had a gun and option, so I wanted to show Kara, the Elf Rogue. She does have a weapon variant that could be used very nicely for this as well. Txarli Factory has their sci-fi release, which seems to be like giant robot, giant mech remains. Or maybe not so much mech, but giant robot walker type deal. Yeah, when I see that, you can see the armor in the front. Just to show you kind of how they assemble it as well once you print it off. Unit 9 is going this month with Strike Team Omega. Here we have Cerberus. Is it a car? Is it a drone? Is it a walker? Here we have a Contractor. Comes in several different variants. Several heads, several bodies. Definitely seems to be very modular this month. They usually have a lot of characters like Serene Firefly Novak here, and usually variants of that character, but they seem to have a lot more of just generic models this month, which is fine. I actually really enjoy that. Here we see VTX11, aka Bonesaw, or is that a nickname? Maybe it's not a nickname. Couple of different options here. And again, there's also some military cases. And then, I guess for an actual vehicle, we have the Spectre MRAP. The behind shot. And then, of course, they do a gaming mat as well, that if you have a large style 2D printer, or if you don't, you could always go to a service and get that done and print those out for you. Velrock this month is doing Spacefarer release, Sisters Repentia. Reminds me of Thundercats, going back to another 80s cartoon. I don't know if these have individual names or not. Look, even the that's like an incense burner. What's it called? I forget what it's called, but it's even got little cat ears, doesn't it? Vermillion Miniatures this month has the Armor Workshop, which I believe is inspired by Fallout. I may be speaking out of turn there, but WarGames Atlantic has Lizardmen Tactical Squad. Einherjar Heavy Mortar. Very impressive. I really like this model. Harvester Infected. Josian Mortar Artillery. Samurai in Nanbando with Tanagashima. I put a question mark because I'm not 100% certain on that, but Republican Carabineros for the Spanish Civil War. WarGames, y'all are very specific. German Ascari. Now, I'll be honest, if I don't know the Ascari, but I was surprised to see these were considered German troops. Hussars on foot at Abu Klay. And if you want to pause, you can pause right here and see a list of everything we just looked at, which is where I got a lot of these names from, to see what you get for this month, depending on what tier you back them at. Wargame exclusive this month is, oh, there's just a blank slide there, sorry. $1 set, you get these models. Orc Mad Riders Youth's Specials. Some pretty cool models here. That goblin looks absolutely miserable, as any goblin should. Flamethrower, missile launchers. Are those bullet bills launching out of that thing? They almost look like it, don't it? We should name that guy Bowser. Renegade of Pain Guardsman of Changed Way. Several options here. Here we have an Imperial Spider Assassin. Maiden Sisters Main Squad T1. Look at a couple of these models here. Very nice detail. Mechanic Adept Battle Servant Squad T1. So here comes our medics, ready to fix everybody up. Sisters in Heresy Pleasure Squad. What does that mean? They focus on their pleasure by killing you? Probably. Orc Heads Set V1. I'm not even going to try to count that. That's a lot of heads. Maiden Sisters Heads Set V1. You want her with a scar, without a scar. The Arachnid Assassin. Obviously very similar to the previous guy we saw. Sisters in Heresy Heads Set V1 as well. Wow, there's a lot of things going on in Wargame exclusive. War Machine is our final Patreon to look at, or tribe, rather. War Machine 3D has for June. You pretty much see what you're getting kind of sort of here. Now, this is a loyalty reward. It is not part, it is a 3-month loyalty reward. So Gravedigger, Ghost Dogs, Allison Jakes, and Gravedigger, Extreme Plugger, Warjack is also a 3-month loyalty reward. So if you want the big models, you've got to stay with them for 3 months. But for the month of June, you get Cynthia Roscoe, some Gravedigger Defenses, Gravedigger Objectives. I was going to say those aren't defenses, those are the trenches. It's getting long, isn't it, guys and girls? Gravedigger Security Checkpoint Terrain. I do like the train, though. I realize it's not going to run other than in my imagination, but what more do I need? Mindbender. He's not a doctor, though. Another 80s cartoon reference, sorry. Drudge Conduits. And yeah, that is where we are done for the June review. That is a bit longer than normal because I'm doing this so late in the month. I do apologize. I was out on summer break, but then I got called back in to help with some summer school stuff, and I've been dealing with some other things around the house that has been distracting me, and retracting me probably too. But hopefully we'll be back really soon with a July preview. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.